Immigration. The topic is back in the news, and in this critical election year, there could be new opportunities for federal immigration reform. This is the CitizenLink report. I'm Carrie Gordon Earll, along with CitizenLink Executive Director Tom Minnery. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Carrie.
Good to have you here today. This is kind of a landmark CitizenLink report. For the first time, Focus on the Family has made a statement about immigration. Why did you decide to do that? Why is this a family issue?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, we've been looking into the issue of immigration for a long time because at its essence, there are families involved, people who are trying to flee economic misery from home countries, try to come here and get work and send money back, or try to get their children and spouses in to protect them from hardship. And so our hearts go out to those people while we still try to see the law enforced, and we understand that civil law has to rule. But let me just tell you about some of the heartbreak that we see. If a lot of people say, well, people ought to just get in line. That's what my parents or my grandparents had to do. Why can't people just get in line? Well, let's talk a moment about people who have gotten in line. Let's talk about people who are classified as legal permanent residents. We call them green card holders. Now, if I have gotten in line and I've gotten that precious green card and I've got a spouse or I've got children under 21, it's going to take me 3 years to get them reunited with me. Now, that actually is an improvement. A couple of years ago, it used to take 5 years, particularly from Mexico, for a Mexican green card holder to get a spouse or children in. And we think that that's one principle that could be changed. If we ask people to get in line, the lines ought to move. Now, just suppose I'm a green card holder here legally, and my child and my spouse are out there, but my child turns 21. Well, it becomes now a 20-year wait, no longer just a 3-year wait. And lo and behold, if my child who's over 21 marries, it's not possible legally to get that person in. So it's stressful on families. So we see it as a family issue.
So as a timing issue, why would you get involved right now in the middle of a heated election year?
Yeah, a lot of people are asking that question. Sometimes we ask ourselves that, but actually we have been studying this for a couple of years. Our federal issues analyst, Ashley Horn, and I have been to Washington, D.C. We have talked to experts on all sides of this issue. We have examined the scriptures, both Old Testament and New Testament, that apply to this situation. A lot of times, people who come at this from a religious viewpoint talk about Old Testament passages that mention welcoming the stranger. And that's our compassionate side as Christians, of course. But there's also the New Testament side. Romans 13 asks us to honor the governing authorities. And we are a government with a civil law. So laws must be respected and maintained that are deemed to be fair for everyone. And sometimes people who come at this from a religious view don't often emphasize that side of it enough.
When we talk about laws, protecting the borders is a key issue when we talk about immigration reform. What is Focus's position on protecting the borders?
Well, we think that our borders ought to be sacrosanct. And the problem is that people come over the border because people in the United States offer them jobs, and they do so illegally. It is not legal to hire someone here without legal status to be here. That side of the equation is neglected. We advocate for uniform and fair enforcement, total enforcement of federal laws against employers who would hire people here illegally. Now, you do that, then the jobs dry up. It seems to us that the pressure on the border would cease. At the same time, you get the lines moving, and all of the lines, not just for those who want to be green card holders, all of the lines are horribly clogged. You tell people to get in line. If you can get those lines moving, then people are induced to do it correctly. So we got into this a while ago, studying all of this. And it is my idea that this election year is going to produce some new leadership, some new emphasis, some new incentives to fix this horribly broken problem. And whether you're on the left, whether you're on the right, everybody sees that it's an incoherent stew of conflicting laws. We have been hoping to lobby for improvements in the law that would honor families and make every effort to keep families intact, because kids who are here need to be with their parents. Parents ought to be with their kids, and that's where we come from. That's why Focus on the Family gets into it, and our board of directors has discussed this thoroughly, and we have produced a statement which is on our CitizenLink website that lets people know exactly where we are.
In addition to Focus looking at this, Focus President Jim Daly signed on to a statement last week put together by the National Association of Evangelicals. It was signed by over 100 different evangelical faith leaders. Why did Jim feel like he wanted to put his name on that?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of people have asked us that. Why did Jim sign this huge statement? Actually, he signed it because those principles in that NAE, National Association of Evangelical statement, are not that far removed from principles that I have just been talking about. We, in our Focus set of principles, are more detailed than were the NAE principles. But when you look at those people who have signed it, a whole lot of conservative Protestant denominations, a whole lot of conservative universities, seminaries, people who are not politically liberal, not theologically liberal, realize that things have to change, and we agree with this stuff. Now, the problem with the NAE statement is that there's a little bit of squishiness in it, room for interpreting one way or interpreting another. But Jim thought it was close enough to where we are that he should go ahead and sign it.
Now, since Jim signed that statement, we've received criticism from people saying, hey, this sure sounds like amnesty.
Yeah.
Is this amnesty?
Yeah, people want to know if we're supporting amnesty, and no, we are not. One of our principles talks about legal status for those willing to come out of the shadows, who are not here legally, people willing to confess their crime of being here illegally, people willing to pay fines, make restitution for their crimes. And that is actually the opposite of amnesty. Amnesty is giving a pardon for people who have committed crime or done something wrong. This is requiring people to pay a fine. A lot of times people who get in trouble with the law are not given the maximum sentence, and in this case, a maximum sentence would be immediate deportation. We're not convinced that that's the adequate outcome in every circumstance. And we have talked to pastors who minister to Hispanic congregations and in the Hispanic community, and they tell us if people could just be free from the imminent threat of being deported, that is, the breadwinner being deported, they'd be willing to come forward and say, I give up, I surrender it, tell me what I need to do. But they would like to keep their family intact, and we think it makes no sense. It takes a breadwinner like that, deport that person, and leave his family there to become destitute and to become wards of the state, throw them on the welfare system or what. Now, a lot of people say, well, you know, take his family with him. They're all here illegally. Well, some of them are, some of them are not. As you know, children who are born in the United States, regardless of whether their parents are legal or illegal, those children are citizens. That's a law, and it would take a constitutional reform to change that law. That's not likely to happen. So it's very complicated, and a lot of times there's been families who are not here legally have been rooted in their communities because employers violate the law by giving them jobs. And so we shouldn't be surprised when these situations that are very heartrending come to light. And so we stand for some sort of at least temporary legal status for somebody to come forward, make amends, confess, make restitution. Now, again, that is not amnesty, but The NAE statement talks about legal status and or citizenship. We do not stand for citizenship for people such as that. At the most, we think people who want to gain citizenship need to go to the back of the line because they have been here illegally. So that's the situation.
It's complicated, and it was made even more complicated last week when Jim Daly signed the NAE statement, and then President Obama came out and announced a new policy where illegal immigrants here, 30 years old or younger, would not be deported if they meet certain criteria. So that muddied the waters even more. How does Focus feel about the president's announcement? Do you agree with that position?
Well, I call that amnesty because he has not required people here illegally to do anything, just be under a certain age. And he's absolved them of their responsibility. That's what I would call amnesty. Now, it's part of something that has been talked about for a long time called the DREAM Act, allowing younger people who have established themselves, who came here illegally, to get on a path to citizenship. We do not support that. And here's the problem with that. To qualify for what he has declared he will do is that you have to be at least a high school graduate or have a GED or been in the military. Now, think about that. A kid who has just graduated from high school, needing his family structure, certainly. He's allowed to stay. His parents are subject to being deported. That's highly anti-family, it seems to us. And so this will serve to split the family asunder. All of these reasons are why we began looking into that, and we hope and pray for a better political climate after the election so that we can begin working on this, and we'll provide regular reports because people will need to know what we say about what we believe and not how others interpret what we say and what we believe.
This is an issue in need of attention, and as you've laid that out today, it's very complicated. You have a lot of different elements, a lot of different views. But your hope is that there will be opportunity in the new year after the election for some positive reforms moving forward. Why are you optimistic about that?
Because it is broken. Everybody realizes that. One of the political realities derives from the economic situation we find ourselves in. People are not clamoring right now to get into our country. People crossing the border illegally from Mexico, those numbers have dropped way off because the jobs are not here. And so they're not coming in large numbers. Eventually, the economy is going to turn around and there will be demand for workers. By that time, we have got to we have got to have changed the situation so everybody knows what everybody's doing and there's an orderly process. And I'm actually encouraged by so many conservative Protestant denominations signing on to that NAE statement, the one that we don't actually fully agree with in all of its ramifications, but it's close enough. Particularly the Southern Baptist Convention, the largest evangelical Protestant denomination, has been leading on this for a long time. A lot of Southern Baptist pastors have said, yes, we have to solve this. So their pastors, conservative churches, taking the lead.
Well, thank you, Tom. And this has been, I hope, a good introduction of this issue to our CitizenLink viewers, because this is something we're going to be talking about.
Oh, I hope so too.
And we're going to be keeping track of it. So thank you. And thanks to all of you who share your thoughts and concerns with us. You can always reach out to us via email at mail@citizenlink.com. That's mail@citizenlink.com. And in this important election year, we would encourage you to be registered to vote and to be educated voters. There are a lot of issues at stake, from the sanctity of human life to the definition of marriage to protecting our religious freedoms. So we encourage you to exercise your citizenship and stand tall and be heard.